Hi everyone, my name is Lindsay and I work for Skills Development Scotland in the My World of Work Live team. So My World of Work Live is about helping you young people understand what jobs Scotland is going to need in the future and helping you to get the skills that you'll need for them. It is Scottish Apprenticeship this week, Scottish Apprenticeship Week this week, and this is a great time to start learning a bit more about the world of work and different routes you can take to work. So in today's session, we're going to have a quick overview of the IT and digital technology sector and look at opportunities that there's going to be in this sector. I will then introduce you to our expert today, who is John, who's a solution architect for CGI, and you'll have your opportunity to ask questions to John. I'd encourage you to get as involved as possible today, so please do use the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen and ask us questions as we go through. We'll try and answer as many of these as we possibly can. Just to let you know that today's session is being recorded, and that's so that any young people who couldn't make it today can still access the resources. It will be available for everyone to watch on the My World of Work YouTube channel. This also means that you can go back and rewatch everything that's talked about today. Don't worry though, anything you ask can be anonymous and you can select that option in the Q&A box. So before I introduce you to today's expert, let's have a look at the IT and digital technology sector. So at the moment in Scotland, there are currently over 800,000 people working within the sector. For the year 2020, the average advertised salary for jobs was just over £30,000, and this sector adds over £5 million to the Scottish economy. It is estimated in the future that we're going to need almost 3,000 more jobs to be replaced or created between 2020 and 2023. The requirement for growth is predicted to raise, and so that's expected to go to over 4,000 jobs between 2023 and 2030. And it's estimated that the value added to the digital sector to the Scottish economy will grow by 27% in 2030. So the skills that you're going to need in this field are teamwork, customer service, and project management. So now let me introduce you to our expert, John. So John is a solution architect for CGI. And so he involves working with clients and looking at their business challenges and looking at different ways to meet their goals. So software and technology is involved in almost everything that we use. And again, working in this can lead to working in various different industries. So I will let John introduce himself.
Thank you very much, Lindsay, for that introduction. So yeah, I'm John McParland. I am a solution architect, which is a role which is involved in understanding clients' business problems or challenges and trying to find the right technology and sometimes people process solution to solve that. Solution architecture isn't a job you necessarily go to straight away, and my own route in there was through the kind of traditional university route. So I studied at school, gained it as it was at the time, standard grades and hires, and eventually progressed to university. I studied software engineering for 4 years, and then I was very fortunate to join a large IT company who had an office in Glasgow. I was studying in Scotland. From there, I've worked across 4 different companies in 4 very different industries, and that's where I've really learned that no matter what company I work for and what a domain, the business problem that they're trying to solve for their clients, technology and software in particular has a really big impact. My own current company, CGI, who are one of the world's largest IT and business process services providers, work across energy and utilities, space and defence, local government, finance, banking. So there's a fair chance that if you've ever used a smart meter in your home to collect your energy usage, you ever used a bank ATM machine, or used your card to pay for something that a piece of software CGI has developed, will have been involved. To get to solution architecture, as I say, I came through the university route and then moved into a more sort of technical leadership role, understanding, how does a piece of software work and how should it be designed. To application architecture, slightly higher, getting to know, no, it's not just this little piece of software, it might be a whole application, a web application, a mobile application. and eventually now progressing more into solution architecture, which is less about the technology and how it works per se, but how that fits into the client's business overall. And again, it's a job which has allowed me to work across a number of different industries, solving all kinds of new problems and working with technologies which didn't even exist when I started my career. So I hope that's given you a bit of a flavour of what I do and what might a role in IT and software bring you. I'd be really delighted to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, brilliant, John. So that's a really good kind of overview of how you kind of got to be where you are just now. So the first question we've got here is, what tasks do you have to do day to day?
Yep, so day to day, I mean, I guess it can vary depending on what kind of project you're working on, what clients you're working for. So sometimes you can be, as I'm just now, with developing new software and new services, new solutions for a given client. And to do that, I spend quite a bit of my day, say, maybe speaking to other project managers, other architects, software engineers, and understanding different perspectives to the problem. In more recent times, I might have also been speaking directly with clients as well to understand their perspective. And then taking those different perspectives, maybe creating some drawings, architecture drawings, writing some narratives and paragraphs around about that to try and explain what I think the problem might be, because the first thing you've got to do is make sure you've got a good understanding, and then maybe play back to whoever it is some of the other perspectives. So maybe you're talking to the client, but you need to understand how your own team is going to support or run that solution when it becomes operational. And you talk to your client to understand what might they have in terms of needs around that. Sometimes I will be designing things. So again, a lot more drawing, a lot more writing paragraphs and talking to people to try and say, well, here's how we solve a problem and here's what will be involved. We'll have some software, might have some infrastructure, bringing together different products and components to make a single solution. So that can take up a good bit of time. And I guess the final thing is really there's a bit of team leadership experience as well that you need in a role like this. So you can be talking to your own team and understanding how they're getting on with maybe delivering a new component or a piece of the solution. If they get any challenges, anything they didn't expect, being able to understand that, help if you can, but maybe make sure you just understand it well enough to be able to talk to whoever needs to understand that, whether it be another team or a client or whoever.
Brilliant, that's really good. That's a really nice breakdown of everything you kind of get involved in. So this is a nice follow on to the next question, which is, what made you join CGI?
What made me join CGI? So there's a few reasons. CGI were the initial thing was they were looking to open a new office in Glasgow, and the way they wanted to work was to have a focus on emerging technologies and agile delivery. And at the time, there was also a big push on open source software. But it was a chance to come in and not just, I guess, work for a company, but we were building something new. And we were building it in a way which was, I guess, really close to how I like to work. And what I'd seen from working in other companies, that more and more companies, more and more clients needed us to move towards. So there's that chance to really be part of establishing something new. But behind all that, there's this massive company, and it's the world's 5th largest IT services provider, who worked across so many different industries, say space, defence, and national security, banking, local and central government. So really so much scope to work with clients whom, how do I put this best, that I would be able to see the benefits that they were giving. Yeah, so especially when you think of things like in local government, it might be services that people around about you in your local community make use of. And I mentioned, at the start, whether it's a banking transaction or your smart meter or so on, knowing that your technology that you had been a part of delivering was being used by people you really knew, which is something that really motivates me in my career.
Yeah, and that's a really nice way of looking at it. As you say, you're actually helping people that you know, which would make a big difference. And again, this follows on really nicely to the next question, which is, what skills are most important to do your job?
It's a mix. There are technical skills, of course. You need to be able to, certainly as a solution architect, you need to be able to understand what the purpose of a given piece of technology is for, what problems it solves, how it solves them, any limitations, things that it can't do, things that you maybe shouldn't use it for. So that understanding of technology is really important, but so is the ability, I guess, just to listen, to empathise, to be able to not just see your own view of things, but understand the perspective of someone else. Because it's only when you do that that you get a real feel for where the root of the problems lie, and be able to not just find a solution, but be able to communicate what that solution does back to either the client or whoever else needs it, and to anyone else who's involved in it. So that kind of softer skills is really quite important too.
Yeah, that's really good. And someone's asked, what are the most enjoyable parts of your job?
Also, the bit that I enjoy most is the same as when I started, and in fact, what inspired me to move into software and IT is knowing that something you've built works.
Right.
So it didn't matter when I was just straight out of university and coding up with something very low level. It maybe didn't have huge impact, let's say, but to today when I'm developing new solutions for clients or so on, knowing that you designed or you created something and see it works is still a motivating factor for me. And you can get that at various stages all the way. You don't have to wait until you're several years into your career before you get that feeling. You can get it straight away.
Yeah, that's a really nice feeling, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And so off the back of that, someone's asked, what are the most challenging parts of your job?
I guess it's I talked about how you need to understand different people's perspectives, and I find that enjoyable. I like to know what the problems are, why a particular problem is looked at in a certain way, and so on. But it can also be quite challenging because there'll be lots of people who have different views on how things should be done or what the problem is, and you need to find ways to collaborate and agree what the right solution is. And unfortunately, fortunately rather, I think I've been successful most of the time in doing that. But it is quite challenging, but more rewarding all the soul when you manage it.
Yeah, that sounds really good. And I think that's the sort of challenges, like most of the challenges, once you overcome them, it does feel quite rewarding. So it's good to know that you can manage that. And so this is an interesting question. Do team members all work on the same project?
You have a mix, yep. So if you're delivering a project, it might, particularly if it's a bigger project, you need several people to deliver it, all working in various different roles. Project architects, developers, infrastructure designers, lots and lots of different roles involved. And yes, you need to band together as a team in order to deliver that and be managed in the same way and commit to delivering things in time so that maybe your colleague who depends upon you can then get on with what they're doing. With a bigger company like CGI, you tend to find you can have a team that, you've got your project team that you work on to deliver a given project, but you've also got teammates who are maybe working on other projects as well, but you might band together at a later point to come on another project at some other point in time.
That's really interesting. I suppose it's nice and diverse. And so, again, this falls on lovely to the next question. What has been your favourite project to work on?
Oh, I better say my current one, shouldn't I? It's very difficult to pick out any one project. Right? I've been very fortunate to work on a number of different projects over the course of my career, and even in the last couple of years. And there's ones where I'd say I loved that project because I worked very closely with the client to understand the problem and agree a solution with them. I could say there was another project where it was the technology that I was working with that was most enjoyable. So I'd struggle to give you any single answer. What I would hope to say is, that there's a lot of diverse types of project you can work on, and there'll be something enjoyable on every single one of them that I hope you would find if you choose a career in IT or software.
Brilliant. Okay, and this is quite an interesting question. Do you get a chance to travel with your job?
Yep, absolutely. And it can be it's down to what your employer needs, but I'd also say it's down to your own preferences as well. I myself have got a young family and so on. Not always travel isn't always the right option for me, but I have done so in the past. Travelled down to clients' offices. If I was working down south, sometimes I've travelled, for day meetings, or sometimes you stay down for a little while. But that's my experience. And the other one I should add, sometimes you're travelling just across the city, especially with a company like CGI, who tend to locate ourselves close to our clients. So sometimes you're just travelling from one street to another in the same city. However, I mean, if it's something that's of interest to you, you can work with companies who will have you travel the world, or at least travel the country. And I've got people that I recall from university and earlier in my career as well, who are now living elsewhere in the world, some in North America, some other places, and that's what suited them and their lifestyles, and they've been very happy with it. So it really is up to you. I would say if it's something that's interesting to you, absolutely pursue a career in IT software, but you'll also be able to find the right company to give you that opportunity.
Really good. And I guess it shows just how many diverse options there are in IT. So you have the option maybe to be based in one place or not travel too much, or do quite a bit of traveling. So someone's asked, do you have many opportunities for career development?
Absolutely, yeah. And I started my career as an entry-level software engineer, and that meant I was doing quite low-level software development, maybe making just small changes to code. I was very fortunate that I worked with a good team and had good people around about me, and I learned from them, and that allowed me to move from a sort of entry level into a senior software engineer who could take on a bit more challenging programming tasks, design tasks, eventually into technical leadership. So learning from, or breaking down bigger designs or code changes into smaller pieces that a team could do, and moving into more architecture at an application level. Here's how many components we should have, and here's how these components should interact. To solution where it's might have different applications interacting with each other. But that was my career path. Again, I can think of people that have decided, do you know what, I'm happy with the software engineer now. I want to be a project manager. I want to be a product owner. The management of companies. There's tons of opportunities and very clear career paths with many of the companies, certainly with the company I'm fortunate to work with now and was in the past. So absolutely.
Yeah, that's really good to know. And again, this one follows on quite nicely. Do you have to keep studying and gaining new qualifications in your career?
It's a yes and no to that, right? So how would I put it? Technology is always changing. There's always something new. I do a lot of work with cloud technology just now. I started my career 15 more years ago. Cloud technology wasn't a big thing then, if at all there. So I needed to learn to be able to keep pace. What I would say is though, if you're interested or passionate about technology, it doesn't feel like a chore. I did recently do some certification in cloud technologies, and while you know, I had to put some time in to get there, it was interesting. And at the end of it, I didn't feel as if, oh, thank goodness I've passed that or anything. It was more, I wish I'd known that sooner, because if I had, I might have done or solved this problem in a different way, or do you know what, I can't wait, I hope I find a problem that might need that solution, because I just really like that technology. So yeah, you do need to keep learning, but if it's something that interests you, it's certainly not a chore. It can be quite enjoyable.
Yeah, that's really good. And again, I would say this one flows quite nicely into the next question, which is, do I need to go to university?
Absolutely not. There's many routes in, and I say, speaking just before we started, it's Apprenticeship Week, and one of the things that I've learned since I joined the industry is that there are many different routes into a career. So I did take the graduate route. I went to university and so on. That's what I knew I had to do at the time. CGI, I've seen, have hired modern apprentices who've maybe done software development for business courses, where they have, you know, worked at CGI for 4 days a week, say, and put into practice what they learn on their other day leave at college or university, and gaining some, I guess, some real life skills as well to complement it. Those softer skills I talked about, the teamwork, the communication, written and oral communication, both, like, they've been learning how to do that at the same time as getting a formal training. That's one route. The other route that we've made a great deal of use of is graduate apprenticeships. So a bit like the modern apprenticeships, where, you know, 4 days at work, so to speak, and then 1 day at university. At the end of that, you come out with a degree. And we've had people who have progressed from starting with this as a modern apprentice, progressed to graduate apprentices, and now are full-time employees with CGI. So it's many different routes, and it's all what suits you best.
Yeah, that's brilliant, and it's really good to know that it's not just one route into it. And so someone's asked, what subjects would you recommend I do at school?
I think, I mean, also it depends upon the route you want to take in. So obviously pay close attention to the course requirements, but generally you'll find things like maths and any technology related subject will be useful. So computing studies or information technology, you know, subjects are going to be useful to you, but it's not always necessary. I know good engineers and good programmers who've studied really diverse range of subjects in the past, and still been phenomenal programmers, let's say, to be honest with you. So yeah, definitely the kind of maths and technology would help, but absolutely there's many different ways you can get into it.
Yeah, that sounds brilliant. That's really useful. And so again, really good question, especially in apprenticeship week. Someone says, if I wanted to apply for a modern apprenticeship, what would I need to do?
And maybe one Skills Development Scotland might be a better place to answer, but you can apply for a modern apprenticeship via companies like CGI as well. However, they will be fulfilled by the likes of Skills Development Scotland.
Yeah.
And most of the positions and when we're looking for them are advertised on our website.
Yeah, so there's most companies will advertise on their website. We've also got our own website, which is called apprenticeships.scot. So you'll get the wee link for that one at the end of the session. So if anyone's interested in finding out a wee bit more about it, as John says, you can have a look on like CGI's website, or if there's another company that you're interested in, or have a wee look on apprenticeships.scot. But that's a really good question. And again, really nice question. Do I get paid doing apprenticeships?
Yes, you do, and it's same whether it's modern or graduate apprenticeship, you get paid for your time, and it's one of the attractions, I think. It's certainly the folks that I know have gone through that route, found about it, they're getting paid, as well as being able to learn in a real environment.
Yeah, and I think that's the benefit of the apprenticeship is you do get a wee bit of money in your pocket, but you're also on the ground doing the job, so it's actual practice. It's not all just in theory, which I find a lot of apprentices seem to really benefit from. And so, again, you might know the answer to this. What could I do to get some experience in this sector?
I guess it depends. So some companies will offer work experience. Again, it's a case of you need to look at the relevant companies' websites and see what was coming available. What I would say is the entry to be able to start being or doing any programming or software engineering I find it's probably more accessible now than ever. There's lots of good websites out there, like the Hour of Code and so on, where you can learn the right concepts about how we structure programs, how code is structured, what commands and things are used, without, I guess, having to really have to set up anything or have any special software installed or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I would encourage people to have a go. It is very accessible, and you'd get a feel very quickly if you something you enjoyed doing. I certainly hope you would get that feeling of it works. As I say, that it still motivates me.
Yeah. Okay, and this next one, John, I'm not going to put directly to you, but you can feel free to add to it. So someone's asked, can I do a foundation apprenticeship in software development? So if anyone's not sure what a foundation apprenticeship is, that's something you would do while you were still at school. So you might do it over 5th and 6th year, and the qualification works out the equivalent to a higher. So there is a software development one. There's also creative and digital media that you can do a foundation apprenticeship in. But do you have anything to add to that, John?
No, unfortunately not. Just, unfortunately, that's the first time I've heard of those particular ones, but I will certainly be looking out for it.
Yeah, that's okay. I didn't want to just throw that one at you. Okay, and this one, someone's asked, does a modern apprenticeship lead on to a graduate apprenticeship?
Certainly can do. As I said, yeah. I know a number of individuals who took that route, and I say now full members of CGI now.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really good route, I would say, to go down. So this is quite an interesting one. Is there opportunities like this available in rural areas, or does it tend to be central belt?
You can, well, depends on how rural. I certainly know there's a lot of technology companies do tend to be centred in, well, it's Glasgow or Edinburgh, so on, right? And that's because often the clients that you work with happen to be there too. That's not to say that small towns or out of town centres don't have companies as well. So I certainly know there's plenty of companies working a wee bit further from the big city centres. The other thing to consider is that even before the current pandemic, remote working was a thing in software engineering and still exists, and indeed pandemics accelerated the number of remote working roles available. So there is always the chance that regardless of where you're located, you could take on a remote working role and be able to work from wherever you are live.
Yeah, and there are like small software companies based all over Scotland. So as John says, it's not just like Glasgow and Edinburgh. Probably depends quite a lot on what you want to do, and remote working is probably the biggest it's ever been now. So that's something to think about. And on that note, again, I think we've asked every single expert this question. Has COVID-19 affected your job role?
Yeah, and I think everyone has been affected by it. The first thing I would obviously say is I'm incredibly fortunate that I do the job that I do, and to be able to work from home wasn't much of a change. There was the occasional home working anyway, and I'm very fortunate that given the technology we've got available to us, Teams and other remote ways of working and remote ways of communicating, it meant that it was fairly seamless to transition to remote working permanently. On the other side of it, though, is it's opened up some opportunities. Obviously, the minute pandemic hit and there was the need for everyone to work from home where they can, it meant that different companies and organisations needed remote working solutions to help them. So that opened up some opportunities for CGI, and I'm sure many other companies as well to do the same.
Yeah, it's really good. And who influenced you the most to start a career in this field?
My dad was always interested in technology, and there was always computers around my house. From Mum tells me, it's like I was a tiny baby. It was the first time a computer entered the house. So technology was always run about, and my dad would have been a big influence in that. To be honest with you, I was using computers and playing computer games that made me want to be what I thought of at the time as a computer programmer. A sort of inspiration was playing a game called Championship Manager. If anyone is watching now, they'll probably know it's Football Manager, where you pretend to be the manager of a football team. And there's what's called configuration files, which change what you could see on screen. And I was able to go in and change a bit of text in one of those configuration files, and played the game, saw it change on screen, and thought, I did that. And it was really daft because I was only 13 or 14 or something when I did it. So that wouldn't have been the most mature thing that I did or so on. But I immediately got the sense of, hey, wait a minute, I changed something, the program ran, and then I saw a result.
Yeah.
And that was the spark for me. And obviously that's matured as time has gone on. And I've moved on to kind of bigger things, and now it's bigger challenges, and being able to see that, hey, guess what, I maybe designed that, or I asked the team to do that in a certain way, and it's come to fruition, and I can see it running and see it do what it's meant to do. So it's the same inspiration as back then that keeps me going now.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really interesting. And someone has asked, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
5 years' time. As a solution architect, there's different ways I could see it going. So you can be a solution architect, and that's your role for a long time, but you could take on much more challenging projects and solutions. So you might be doing something that is used by some few thousand people now. It might be millions of people in the future. You might be doing something that's integrating 5 or 6 different systems now. It might be many more in the future. So you can be a solution architect and do increasingly complex types of solutions, and that would be something I'd be very interested in. The other side to it, where I'm interested, is more around what we call enterprise architecture, which is a bit more about not so much what the solution is, but how do we govern and manage that, the creation of new solutions, and indeed a whole company, a whole organization's IT estate, and how that should best be done, how we should progress different kinds of change to that environment, and so on. So that might be something I'd look to explore in the future as well.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. Really exciting things going on. And that's quite a good question. Have you had any surprises in your job?
Daily. No, yeah, there is. An early question was do you have to continue learning your job? And there's some types of learning is formal. So here's some technology I need to learn about. Here's a new business domain I need to learn about. Maybe if you go to work for a slightly different industry, you have to understand their business domain. But I guess that what makes a job like this interesting, and any job in IT, is there's always something different, and always something new, and always something that surprises you. in order to progress any kind of solution, in order to progress any problem you're trying to solve, you have to make assumptions, and sometimes your assumptions are good. It turns out all right. Sometimes they can be really off, and that can be surprising. But we try not to have too many of those, but it can happen.
Yeah, really good to know. So, just a couple more questions. What do you find easier to work with, people or computers?
Both of the benefits and disadvantages. No, no. The reason that I moved into this kind of role is that you learn that it's not always about just finding the right technology solution. It's a lot about people as well. So I don't know if there's an easier to work with. Some technologies are harder than others. Some people are harder than others, and I'm sure many people would say that about me too. So yeah, there's no real favourite. They all come with different surprises, different ways to look at them. So no, I couldn't answer that either way.
Yeah, I don't know if I would be able to answer that, but that was a really good answer. Well done. So we are almost out of time. So this is the very last question. What advice would you give your younger self?
Get stuck in. For some reason, I thought that to even get started with computer programming, as I thought it back then, I would need some sort of training, and I would need to have special software and whatnot. And I remember trying it and going, what's all this? And I got lost quite quickly. Except in a sort of classroom environment where it was okay. Here's the program I'll do my coding in, and here's the program I'll use to compile, and so on. As I said, there's many websites out there that will allow you to get started quite quickly. You can do it at the kind of a visual level where it's drag and drop of blocks of code, and that will still teach you the concepts. You still get the same benefit from learning. And there's many other websites that will let you basically just do your coding inside a browser, and let you save things offline and present you with tutorials as you go along. So there's lots of ways to get involved. And if I was speaking to my younger self now, I'd say just get stuck in. Just try it out, find out what's good, what you need to learn. And yeah, I'd learned a lot more from that if I'd tried it.
I think that'd be really good advice. So unfortunately, that is us pretty much out of time. So thank you very much, John, for coming along and giving us such a brilliant insight to what you do. And so if you're interested in maybe pursuing a career in IT, these are some of the jobs related to what John's talked about today. So we've talked about a solutions architect, and I'm hoping you've had quite a bit of information on that and the different routes to it. There's also roles like a software engineer or like an IT project analyst. We've got some links here. This is our website, My World of Work, so you can find out more about different jobs and different routes. We've also got apprenticeships.scot, and that's where you can find out more about foundation, modern, and graduate apprenticeships, so the different areas you can do them in. You can also look for vacancies if you're looking at different apprenticeships as well. And we've got digitalworld.net, which will give you more information on the IT and digital technology sector. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. Thanks again to John. Thank you, and have a good day, everyone. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.